Welcome, everybody. It is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. This is Cyber Warrior Studios, and I know you were all here for another amazing episode of What? Security Happy Hour. That's right. I got a big show planned, and thanks to Devin, who sits in the backstage for me, and InfoSec Pat, because, you know, they're just friends and live near each other and always do shit together. I have my amazing guest for this evening, and it's going to be a big show. We're going to be talking about a lot of shit that people in the offensive security side really enjoy. I used to. I don't do too much with it anymore, but I promise it'll be a great episode. Stick with me for about 10 seconds, and I'll be right back. Told you, 10 seconds, and I'm back. Here we are again. Look, with me this evening, I have the one and only, and I'm going to butcher his name, but I'm going to try it. Jacob Swinsinski.
You got it, man. You got
it. But I got Jacob with me this evening. He was on InfoSec Pat's show Thursdays, I believe quite recently, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was about a month ago.
Okay, yeah. So we got a lot to talk about. I mean, you gave me a bunch of ideas, from binary exploitation to vulnerability research on IoT to, you know, the same shit we always do, which is just rants and talks and everything in between. So for the first and foremost, though, we've got to go with the normal question. What got you into security?
All right. So honestly, there's a couple things that ended up making me pivot into this direction. So the first thing was just growing up, I was always like introduced into a whole bunch of different things, like from science into learning that my parents exposed me to, and I'm very thankful for that. And honestly, that just like spiraled me towards the direction that always made me super curious. And as a result, whenever I was 15, I actually built my first computer because I wanted to get into PC gaming because consoles suck at the time. And honestly, I fell in love with it. I was like, wow, like I'm starting to see the power reveal itself before my very eyes, and I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable. So I started off by like building, so on the hardware side, learning how like various components work on the hardware side, as well as how to program later on in my career after college. And honestly, it just spiraled from there, from wanting to make things and build things up to wanting to break things.
See, I broke things first, and then I started fixing them and building them. It wasn't an exploit. I just crashed my dad's computer and then had to learn how to fix them.
I love it.
but yeah, no, man, that's crazy, because at the end of the day, right, we all have our own journey into this career field, our own path. Yours has led you down the offensive security route. And mine was that way initially. Then I kind of veered and twisted and turned and have gone all over the place. So with you getting into security and doing programming, do you think it was the programming side that really showed you kind of a lot of the flaws and things that you can get into?
So honestly, just to backpedal a little bit, my degree is actually it's in IT and cybersecurity. So everything programming, vulnerability research, binary exploitation, reversing, you name it. That's all done in my free time. I actually learned that and was able to get my last two jobs based off of free time experience that I gained just in projects. Originally, outside of college, in college, I learned networking, system administration, and I love it. And as a result, the coolest thing is while I'm currently progressing throughout my career, I'm starting to notice that having that initial IT background is such a strength, and it gives me those core fundamental knowledge bases that are absolutely necessary. But so in college, I actually had 2 internships for help desk positions, And long story short, they ended up it just wasn't the job for me. I wasn't very good at it. And I was just always in the offensive mindset, wanting to break things. And I was like, I love helping people, but I really want to break stuff at the same time. So I ended up falling in love with pen testing during college, and always doing hack the box, try hack me, you name it. And then out of nowhere, probably like the first year outside of college, I ended up realizing that I have to start learning how to code. So as a result, I started learning how to code, and it's paid dividends, absolutely, no doubt. So not only do I know how to break things down, but I also know how to make them. So having that knowledge base from forward to reverse engineering is very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, I've done some code. Took a little in college, learned some Python outside of college. But what I like the fact though is that a lot of where you're at in your career, I don't want to say it doesn't have to do with your degree, because it still does. Because the fundamentals, the foundational knowledge that you gain, as much as I despise college, and I really, really do. If it was more of a tech school, I think it has more bearing, because then you don't have to take all the other BS classes.
I went to a tech school. That
Yeah,
was the thing. Yep, hands on, man. That's the way to go.
not only is it hands on, but you don't have to take like the English classes, the philosophy, the other BS. It's just
Exactly.
core major classes, and I think that has more value and more value add. And don't get me wrong, there's understanding the psychology of people. I think psych would actually be a great course to add into a cybersecurity program, because whether you're blue team or red team, you have to understand psychology, because you have to understand why the hacker is doing what they're doing. How are they doing it? How it allows you to correlate their thought process in a way that others don't really understand. So I think psychology has value, but I don't know. Calculus, seriously, when am I ever going to use that in cybersecurity?
Come on.
Statistics, yeah, the Boolean variables, maybe, and understanding Boolean knowledge, because then that gets you into your SQL injection, your SQL code, your KQL queries, even breaking into things like you can use it for other aspects of offensive security. But just looking at it, I think it goes way too much into, hey, here's some money, pay us, and we're going to give you a bunch of BS classes. Yeah. Like, I enjoy hands-on, and I think that the fundamentals you get from that, the best course I ever had personally was in the Air Force. When I went through my networking course in the Air Force, these dudes didn't play around. They would literally half like pull out your Cat 5 cable halfway just so you lost connection. You'd walk out the room, they change all your configs, pull that out just a little bit, just enough. And you'd go through, and you had people, they couldn't figure out why their shit wasn't working.
OSI model.
Always layer one. Check layer one every freaking time. But if you don't have those fundamentals of repair, of understanding, then you don't understand how networks work, how computers work. So do you think that having that broad-based knowledge has kind of elevated your career? Like, once you got out of college, once you learned all the fundamentals, and then started doing like binary exploitation, like buffer overflows and things like that, do you think having that fundamental knowledge actually elevated your capabilities going forward?
Absolutely, 100%. So I was actually tasked with, like, in previous efforts that I actually led on completing an entire man-in-the-middle efforts, decrypting SSL, HTTPS traffic, TLS traffic, you name it, various CNO networking operations, which were really prevalent in my last position. I actually ended up setting up an entire covert infrastructure all on my own, which I'm very proud of. That's like one of the highlights of my career so far. It's awesome stuff. So without a doubt, going in with that networking background is completely invaluable.
Yeah, I agree. Again, that's been part of my career, right? When I look at kind of my career trajectory, I like to talk shit on college. I do, on a regular basis. I think you can learn everything you need to learn in IT and cybersecurity from YouTube, or smaller, minute paid
100%.
courses. You know, there's people out there that are charging like $600 for an 8-month-long Linux course and Linux administrators and things like that. So TCM, there's so many other ways that you can go about it that cost a hell of a lot less than what you're going to dump into a college. And so for me, I just think that the fundamentals and then getting into the career field and doing it. But the fundamentals are so valuable because when you have log correlation, let's say from a blue team perspective, you have to know how networks work and what logs they're going to create. What are ports? What are, protocols? What's the OSI model? What are the different things and application layer things you're going to run into, or TCP layer or whatever? I'm freaking mixing up words all over the place now, but get the point. Transmission layer.
Soup.
These transmission control protocol. It's in the transmission layer.
Handshake.
So, when you look at all these different things, and then you look at operating systems and how they operate. Well, if you don't know what logs are generated from authentication, how are you going to find them?
Exactly. One of my first classes I took was desktop operating systems and learning how operating systems coincide with hardware all the way to the GUI, even what just a GUI even is. That is foundational knowledge that I feel like everybody needs to have before you. I think that's even more foundational before you can even dive into the CLI, which is, our bread and butter. So
I prefer CLI. I grew up on DOS.
Absolutely.
I grew up on DOS. So for me, CLI all day.
Server core.
Right. I got really mad when Cisco went from their CLI to, hey, use this web UI now. Nah, homie. No. Give me the CLI, copy and paste. Like literally, my router can go down and I can have another one up in 2 seconds if you just give me the CLI.
That's it. Just SSH back in and it's up like that. Super quick. Super quick. No BS.
I've always loved the CLI. I do better with command structure. That's why I like Linux. And I still do like Linux a lot more. Now with that though,
I would like to interject really quick. I love Linux even more, especially now because of Microsoft Windows, the recall functionality that they're starting to implement in Windows 11. Have you heard about that?
No, what's that one?
So they're utilizing. So it's a new implementation and functionality that they're starting to put into. They're going to start rolling out in Windows 11. And what it does is it utilizes Microsoft's Copilot, so AI functionality. And so sort of like how VMs do snapshots, this is my understanding of it. It'll capture everything, and I'm not lying, this is no exaggeration. You can go look it up. Everything on your computer that you're doing, so that way you can roll back to a snapshot to a previous exact moment in time. And they swear that it's locally stored, nothing goes to the cloud, and it's
that's
all
a lie.
Yeah, it's such a lie. I'm like, why is this a thing?
Well, look, and here's the funny, right? Austin Technology, Austin Cybersecurity will disable all that shit. Let's not lie. If you're in cybersecurity and care about your privacy, you're going to disable all of it. You're like, nah, because they're tracking you, they're watching everything you do, and it's stored to a cloud, it's an invasion of privacy. But people that don't know look at this as convenience. And this is where we have population-wide convenience versus security. What makes things convenient, what makes things easy, makes it less secure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why, like, as soon as I started getting into security, one of my first roles was it was more of like a purple team role for a state agency. So I was doing cybersecurity for a security MSP for school districts in Ohio. And one of the first things that I learned is nobody likes MFA. Everybody's old school. Everybody wants, simplicity, convenience over security. And, me coming in as a young buck, like, learning all these things and wanting to implement all of these new things, especially working side by side with my boss, the CIO. It was a challenge working with some of these superintendents and being able to explain to them and convince them even how important security, even let alone just MFA and implementing complex passwords within their environments are. So it's a double-edged sword between convenience and security, but it's something that we got to do.
And we also have to look at business enablement, right? And before we get into that, because that's going to touch on like your vuln management of IoT and vulnerability research and stuff like that. So owned, it's persistent. You can only disable it temporarily, and it will re-enable it. Windows is known for that.
It sounds like my good friend Windows Defender.
Yeah,
You can disable it all day long, but it's coming right back.
And then you're a prodigy, according to Adam.
My man, Adam's my man. That's my old boss. He is the man.
Jack says it's a feature, not a bug.
But love it.
But so looking at that, when we look at business enablement, when we look at all these things, how many businesses these days are utilizing IoT?
Every single one. They're found in every household now. Every single household that you walk into now, minimum has 2 to 3 IoT devices, whether they know it or not.
I mean, I know I'm running them. I just don't care.
I got a smart light right here. It's cool, but I hate it because
dude, security. My lamp right here is a smart lamp. It's not even on right now. My LED lights, my Google Home that's over there, stuff all over the place. I don't care. Like, but that's home. That's residential, right? Yep. So when I look at things and like, yeah, me and my wife can have discussions, and I'm sure some things about work might come up every once in a while. But saying that, I'm at home, right? I have an expectation of privacy here. Now, I know I don't have privacy. I know everything's always listening, or else how would your phones and everything else know to respond? So for anybody who ever says, oh, we're not listening, yes, the fuck they are. Everything you say, 100%. Your phone, your computers, your whatever, if you have Windows Hello enabled, it is freaking listening. Don't get it twisted.
It really is. If you want to talk about how paranoid I am, I factory reset all my devices once a year. Every time. Yeah, every time. I don't, because I swear, people will always harp that advanced persistent threats are only targeting specific individuals. But especially with the amount of iOS 0 days that are out there, and I'm a big Apple guy, I'm not gonna lie. I factory reset everything, whether it's my PC or my Mac or my iPhone. I'm always factory resetting it.
Well, see, that's why my favorite is, D-Crash here says, I don't know what Oyama is. Do you know what Oyama is, Jacob?
Not familiar.
He says, Oyama is great for running AI locally and LLMs.
I think it's what is it? It's sort of like it's a platform. I was actually looking into local.
It's probably kind of like my smart home platform that I have that I never finished setting up. Odroid is actually what it's called.
Yeah.
And it's literally one of those, like, you don't have to connect it to the cloud. You can configure everything locally on your machine, and it's completely open source code that you do it all. And I was like, I'm gonna do this.
I'm gonna do it. It's your computer. It's not somebody else's.
Yeah.
I miss those days.
Dude, that's why I have 3-4 terabyte hard drives that I just keep externally.
Yep.
Hey, you're running out of space. Cool, I'll go buy another.
NAS storage is the way to go. It is. I try to keep everything as local as possible. I really do. Like OneDrive, iCloud, no way. No.
Yeah, and you can't, in these days with Windows, you can't even like share drives easily. Like, it's because you have to like create a local account, but you can't. It's like pulling teeth trying to create local accounts on Windows boxes anymore. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. But yeah, like, I look at these things and I look at our IoT, and then I look at companies and the corporate infrastructure for them, right? Because the space on them is so small. When you look at a lot of the EDR that's out there, it doesn't really run on these.
No.
I mean, maybe a small, minute agent of like CrowdStrike, you might be able to get onto some of them. But mostly, your IoT doesn't have solid EDR for it.
No, and that's why the biggest reason that they're such a problem is if you take into account network sprawl, just the amount of problems that they can have. Usually, all IoT devices are universal plug and play, so you
Mhm.
connect to the Wi-Fi, and that's all you gotta do. I mean, it's ready to rock and roll, and I mean that's pretty much about it. So they're easy to forget about, like smart bulbs, for example. I mean, they, especially with them being LED, I mean, they could last for years even, and you can completely forget about them being on your network. And, little do you know, if you're running Wireshark, uh, they're connecting back and making callbacks to Chinese servers, and you're wondering what exactly is going on there. Yeah, it's probably the IoT devices.
Usually it is.
Yep.
And a lot of those, and what people don't realize. So let's take this here in the US, right? You're not supposed to have unfettered access into China, right? You're not supposed to be connecting back to Chinese servers. Now, I'm sure other countries have different rules, but we'll go by US rules and regulations. When you're looking at DoD and government and a lot of these organizations, they want to restrict access to data in China, Russia, things like that. But what they don't realize is their IoT devices and some of the applications they use and the hardware they use, it was developed in China and Russia and North Korea and Taiwan and then a bunch of other places that you may not want it to have access to.
Yep.
You're like, but it was built in America. No, it wasn't. No. It
No,
was assembled in America.
assembled, but the chipsets,
Everything comes from somewhere
foreign
else.
soil. Yep. That's where we start rolling into supply chain attacks. Now those absolutely blow my mind. Oh my god! Just like with the XC backdoor,
Well, you had that
that's
one.
software based. I mean, like the crazy thing is, with supply chain attacks, you have software and hardware based, which is just
Mhm.
unbelievable. And oftentimes, I even like making the comparison of supply chain attacks being similar to side channel attacks because you don't really ever consider them until it actually happens, and you really kind of just forget about it until it's too late, unfortunately.
Well, now we've run into so in the past few years, you had SolarWinds, which
Yep.
we still to this day don't know how deep people got because someone could have got onto a government or corporate network, and they're just silent. They're just chilling. They have not found a reason to exploit them yet, or they've been doing it in such a way that it's almost impossible to catch. Maybe they set up US servers and they're just offloading to there. So you're not even seeing geo wise, you're not seeing it going to an IP that you shouldn't be seeing. So we don't know the reach of SolarWinds. Kaseya got hit. Kaseya was another big one. We don't know the reach that took with that software. And so when you look at these huge supply chain attacks, like um GitHub.
It's crazy. I mean, they're completely nation state sponsored. I mean, they're hard to regulate. They're hard to beat because who dominates the markets? It's unfortunately not us.
No, not at all. We did that to ourselves. Look,
We
and I'm
did.
not one to get political on the show at all in the slightest, or
No,
at least I usually try not to.
not at
However,
all.
we burned that ourselves years ago.
Yeah,
We had the
yeah, we did.
intelligence, we had the capability, we had everything we needed, and then we're like, it's cheaper to let them do it. Let's let them
Mm,
do it.
yeah, yeah. Like it's not going to come back and bite us later. Yeah.
Like every chipset in the DoD is Chinese based, I believe, or Korean based. I forget. I don't know. I don't know where they're made. I know
Huawei.
they're not made in America. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, Huawei. Like,
Yeah.
especially with the DoD banning a nationwide Huawei ban and implementing that, especially with the 5G rollout. I mean, if you think about it, we're starting to see 5G everywhere now. Who made
Yeah.
those 5G towers? Who made the chipsets that are embedded within those towers? So I mean, it's a crazy rabbit hole to go down. We could talk about it all
Yeah,
day.
I could go into it for ages just because everybody's like, oh, no, my operating system safe. One, no, it's not. Two, uh, have you looked at your hardware? Just curious.
Yeah.
Space Tacos, what's going on, sister? How you doing? But yeah, I really look into these things because who delve into the exploitation side and vulnerability of IoTs and reverse engineering and things of that nature. What have you found to be in your research so far the most vulnerable of like whether it be IoT, operating system, like what has been the most vulnerable things that you have found in your career so far?
So oftentimes, just like what we were talking about earlier, there are very varying functionalities that companies, especially IoT devices, will roll out that are simply there for convenience. And the other bad thing about IoT companies are they just want to mass produce. At the end of the day, it's all about profit. Like they don't care about security whatsoever. They just care about going from point A to point B and making millions, if not billions, in between. So honestly, a lot of the IoT devices are inherently just vulnerable in nature, like completely vulnerable. I mean, there's IoT devices that still operate using Telnet. There's IoT devices operating on broken encryption standards, if any encryption whatsoever. So yeah, honestly, just broken functionality. Especially with what I'm seeing now, especially in since I'm getting pretty deep into Android security research and going into the native C libraries. A lot of these native C libraries are not vetted and they're also pretty old and they're just rolled over from patch to patch. And because not a lot of people like coding in C anymore, unfortunately.
Well, look at the Linux vulnerability that was out there for how many years?
Yep. Yep. That's how most of those PrivAsk bugs are. I mean, they're just so low level. And honestly, to me, especially with Linux being so vetted and open source, I feel like a lot of those are implants. But you know, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. That's a crazy one. But I am
Well,
totally
I even
convinced.
forget which library or which program, which application it was that literally for what since its inception essentially was vulnerable and no one ever said anything, reported anything, caught anything. And it leaves me to
Slipping my
wonder,
mind.
like, did someone know about this? And like, you know what? I'm gonna have a backdoor into every Linux system, and you ain't gonna be able to stop me because I'm not reporting it, I ain't saying it, and I'm only gonna exploit that which I really want.
Exactly, and that's the thing that is so crazy about vulnerability research is a lot of these 0 days that are found in nature, a lot of these companies, these contractors, even these independent researchers are sitting on these 0 days for months, if not years at a time, and they find the
Oh,
They-
did I say that out loud?
hey, did you say that?
Sorry, it was a
Yeah,
cough.
like
It was a cough. That's right.
hey, listen, it is what it is. We live in a crazy world, and security is just absolutely insane, especially nowadays.
I think. Well, I think it's also you have to look at it this way, right? And so I saw a meme. I think it was yesterday, which was just comical because you had signed up to be on the show, and then I saw this meme, and it may have been today. I don't remember which, but Windows were spying on all your users, and then it showed Google, and it was like, you spy on your users? We only spy through the browser. And then Apple was like, wait, your users know that you spy on them? And then Linux was like, wait, you spy on your users? And
I
I'm like,
love it.
I kind of like that, but at the same time, Ubuntu is so ingrained and embedded and in bed with Microsoft now, you kind of got to break it out by distro because
Yeah, honestly, yeah,
like
because I feel like Ubuntu is just starting to, we're seeing a lot of Microsoft, a lot of proprietary software being preloaded and bundled up and bloating Ubuntu nowadays. That's why I just ended up getting a new laptop a couple weeks ago and had to reinstall Ubuntu and everything again. Every time I install Ubuntu, and it just reminded me of this. Every time I install Ubuntu, I always click the minimal install button every single time. I don't like having that extra bloat whatsoever because who knows about what kind of proprietary third-party source garbage that they're actually putting on there.
Well, what sucks is Ubuntu, ParrotSec, Kali, and a few others. They run a Debian actual distro. They just give their own overlay and own software with it. So essentially, it's all Debian. I love the Debian-based OS. To me, that's one of the first ones I came up on. Backtrack Linux was one of the first ones I used with Ubuntu, and this is years ago when I was still in high school. And it was the apt framework to install, upgrade, update, and being able to know the file structure, just how everything works, Debian made sense to me. And so to go to like Red Hat and CentOS or Arch and use like Yum or Pac-Man or all these other things, I'm like, dude.
Oh man,
I
come
can't
on.
figure this out.
Just let me use app. Just let me use app. Just one package manager.
Just give me app, and I'll be all right. And then they went from you can't use app-get now in the newer ones. Now it's just app update or app upgrade. I'm like, look, I get it's shorter, but you literally did not need to change that. There was no need to change that whatsoever.
No, whatsoever. Because like especially with me, and I know that this has impacted a whole bunch of people, especially with that change. That is such like a rudimentary command.
And it broke so many scripts.
So many scripts. I mean, it's so deeply ingrained in your muscle memory too. You're just like, I gotta update something, boom, boom, boom. But yeah, little changes like that, they don't really realize the repercussions of them before they roll it out.
But I look at that and it's like the advantage Ubuntu has in a retail market or consumer market is that it has now become plug and play, right? I can install an HP printer or a compact printer or, well, compact ain't around anymore, but, Epson or whatever. And the drivers just are like, oh, it's Ubuntu, Debian, got you. But if it's ParrotSec, which is still Debian, they'd be like, I don't know what you're running. I'm like, Debian, motherfucker. Debian.
I'm
running Debian. That's what I'm running. Just install like you do on Ubuntu. Dude, HP gave me the biggest heartache for it because I was trying to use ParrotSec, their home edition.
Mm-hmm.
So not all of the offensive security features, but all of the defensive features. So a non-mode and everything else like that. I was trying to use that as a daily driver, which as much as I love Parrot, please don't ever use it as a daily driver. The repos break almost once or twice a year, and you can't update anything. Literally, I'm like, I can't call home. I'm like, where can you go home? But I was trying. I figured I'd give it a shot and let it go. And my printers wouldn't install. Nothing would install because it was like, oh, I don't know what you're running. And I'm like, Debian? No, you're running something. I can't read it in the, when I do a uname -a, I can't read what's there. And I'm like, Debian?
It's Debian. Come on.
It says Parrot. I don't know what that is. Debian? Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Overcomplicating things, man. That's the other.
I didn't want to fight with it, so I did Ubuntu for a little while, and it was like, oh yeah, here you go. Plug it in, it just goes. I'm like, you mother.
Easy peasy. I mean, come on. Why can't there just be like a one click fix all?
But it's all. The funny thing is that if you do it, they're doing it by like uname instead of understanding what the underlying distro is. All of these distributions, with the exception of Arch, Red Hat, and CentOS, which is still Red Hat, but those three are their own kind of go ahead over there.
Yeah.
Almost every other distro, and I'm sure there's going to be some that still run on Arch, but almost every other distro is Debian based. So
the best one.
Freaking use Debian. Just like,
the best one.
Can I use app? Yes, you can. Cool, I can install this. What? Why?
Come on.
If you're going to tell me to run for Linux, give it to me.
I love it. It's a never-ending battle, man. Hey, we picked the right field to go into. It's nothing but an uphill battle.
Dude, it's always fun.
I love it though. I mean, there's nothing else I'd rather do.
So where have you found? Now, I had this argument when I used to sell computers back when I was in like high school and coming up. I had someone go to war with me over this. Where do you think your most severe exploits and vulnerabilities, like what operating system do they lie on right now?
Desktop based, I would 100% have to say that Windows is the biggest target in the market right now, just because
the biggest target. But where's the most severe?
I think Linux. Based because what are most of the servers? Most servers are.
I was going to say Linux or Mac for me.
Yeah.
Because in order to really exploit them, you have to have root access. Which if you have root access,
Got the key.
You
Got
own
the
the
keys to the
system?
kingdom. And yeah, I can really agree with that because most iOS users, a lot of them are like a lot of researchers. Not even just security researchers. Independent political researchers, whatever it may be. Hacktivists, activists. They are more prevalent in the iOS like infrastructure and the ecosystem. That's why iOS and Apple actually ended up implementing lockdown mode within their most recent iOS
I
updates.
despise iOS, even though I use it.
Yeah,
Because
so do I.
Apple is too big for their britches, and they're like, we don't get malware. You can't infect our phone, so we're not going to let you install any anti-malware.
Yep. It's a bad call. Bad call.
I've got friends whose phones have been completely exploited, and until they get a new phone and don't install any of your old shit, they're owned.
Yep. And the crazy thing with that is like most of these iOS bugs, they're all for persistence. So they're just waiting. They're data collecting. It's all spyware, which is the craziest thing. And it all has like usually. If you do it right now, if you look it up right now, there's a whole bunch. So like you have the new M chips, the new ARM chips. They have a permanent vulnerability that cannot be patched whatsoever. That's a hardware exploit that cannot be patched. So they have to you have to go sell your laptop, go get a new one. Every single ARM based chip is exploitable to that bug.
Is it on the same vein as Spectre and Meltdown, or is it
yes,
worse?
It's version 2, and it has remote capabilities, which is very scary.
The original, did you need physical access?
You needed
physical Meltdown. You actually
that's why
the box.
Exactly. You have to have physical access with Spectre and Meltdown, but with the new bug, you can do it remote, which is kind of crazy. Kind of crazy.
Just text real quick.
Kind of crazy.
The whole phone in front of me.
I love it.
That's absolutely nuts. Now, have you found or developed any exploits on your own? Right, you're big into binary exploitation. Have you developed any that bypass EDR on your own? Have you been able to bypass things like CrowdStrike, Defender, Bitdefender, any of the other major players out there?
So no, a lot of my binary exploitation expertise and experience, it didn't involve bypassing EDRs. It actually involved more of bypassing underlying technologies like ASLR, Pi, you name it. So just various technologies like that are actually found within the operating system or binary based memory protections. So yeah, nothing on the EDR blue team side, but
so
more
have
on
you
like
been able to bypass EDR though is the question.
I never actually put it to the test. I'm not that's not really my
I just think it's fun to do.
Yeah.
It's been years.
Yeah.
I used to play around with it.
See, I think it's awesome. Yeah, because there's so I got into the NIM programming language for a little bit. I was on a little bit of a kick. I think it was this time last year. And under 50 lines of code, I was able to make a backdoor that targeted Windows and Linux. And I slipped in a couple IO operations, a couple sleeps, and just a couple like arithmetic operations, and it was able to completely laugh at Windows Defender, which I thought was super funny. And I didn't do any form of encryption, nothing like that whatsoever. So if you're looking into getting into like malware dev, definitely check out NIM. NIM is super cool stuff.
My buddy, totally not a hacksaw, and he's been on this show, but for the life of me, I'm not going to be able to remember his name at the moment. Because that escapes me, but he does a lot of exploit development and is developing his own language. So
that's awesome.
Check him if you're on Instagram. Check out Totally Not a Hacksaw. Dude's freaking fantastic. And when I remember his name,
that name sounds familiar. I gotta look him up.
Yeah, he does like dude's younger than us, man. He's like 17 now, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, he ain't even 18 yet.
That's crazy.
So, dude's freaking amazing. Knows his shit. Does a lot of automobile hacking. He's been to like DEF CON and things like that, doing presentations. Ryan, that's it. 17. Pat knows him. Thank you, Ryan Marston, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Pat knows him. I love him to death. I do. I'm so used to Instagram that I always forget his actual name because I know his handle.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so he developed his own. But it's funny because Owned put up Rust is great for things like that as well. And
Definitely.
I had a buddy 2 years back, probably about a year or two ago, that was developing in writing code in either Go or Rust. I can't remember which. Wasn't necessarily developing malware. Was writing a legitimate program. But due to some command in the code that he was not actually running on the system yet, he was just writing it and would save the file. The EDR at the time, I want to say it was Defender, but I could be wrong, kept flagging it as malicious. So you couldn't even freaking do anything. Flag it as malicious every time. He had to freaking put it into an excluded directory because he was.
I love it. Those exclusion zones, I mean, they're crucial.
But it was like, because it wasn't like Go or Rust. Again, I forget which one of the languages it was. But yeah, they were doing development in like one of those. And it was like, yeah, this is malicious. You can't say this. What the fuck?
As soon as you write the disk, Windows Defender's eating it up.
So some of it is good. Like I think EDR has come a long way. But I also think they're all trash.
Yeah.
Because
honestly,
there's so many ways around all of them.
Yes.
And if you disable CrowdStrike, where there's ways to disable it as a local user and just shut it off, you don't even got to bypass that anymore. I'm just gonna turn it off.
Not at all. Not at all. Honestly, I know that this doesn't apply to everybody, but in my opinion, the best, even better than Windows Defender, I think the best antivirus is yourself. Just be ultra paranoid. Don't click on things. Security awareness. Definitely pay attention to your security awareness training if you're not in the InfoSec community. It's just, honestly, you got to just know what's sketchy and what's not. And I feel like the more time you spend on the internet, the more well-rounded you start becoming. You know which bad alleys, so to speak.
Well, let's be honest too. We've all been caught.
All of us.
We've all been caught. Now, I used to purposely get caught. Now, I've been hemmed up a time or two, but it's very, very rare to get me these days because I'm that type of person. It's very paranoid, especially at work. When I start getting work emails, I'm like, let me view. Well, Outlook doesn't do view source. I forget how it is. You can't open it. Basically, view the source code of the email. And where you see the headers and everything. That's how I know every phishing training, because it, when your company uses know before, it's right in the freaking thing. And so you're like, oh, okay, cool. Microsoft has their own freaking tag for their servers.
Check those domains
emails. You can't get hacked. Absolutely, right? You get congratulated on passing every phishing check. Ain't opened emails in 5 years.
That's a good one. I love it.
I always see that one, man. Several times a year, that meme comes across Facebook for me. Gets congratulated on passing all their phishing exams or phishing tests.
You can't fish somebody if they don't use email.
Exactly. Now you just got to do it through Teams, which that's another one. So let's talk a little bit about that, because every organization right now uses Teams. Well, not every, but we'll say probably the majority of them.
Thank God mine doesn't. Thank God.
Well, you got Teams, Slack, and I don't think there's another big one out there. Those, I think, are the two group chats for remote work.
Yeah.
What do you think about Microsoft allowing out of corporate network connections to now message you.
Completely bad move. I mean, what's the first telltale sign of a potential phishing email? It comes from an external source. You know, it's just it's no good. I don't agree with it whatsoever.
So, how many vulnerabilities do you think live in Teams right now?
0 days or end days?
End days. Just live.
Probably a dozen.
I mean, 0 days. If you're on the most current version, which not everybody is, let's be honest, because companies don't like to update their shit. But if you're on the most current version, what? All right, let's go with, I guess, 0 days. How many different ways do you think somebody can be exploited through Teams?
I mean, there's so many bypasses. I mean, there's so many different ways that you could actually go about doing it. I mean, you could even sneak a malicious JPEG or a PNG image, and you can or a malicious or a malicious GIF, and you can embed secret code and malicious code within that image. You could send it across, like, oh, look at this, like, you know, check out this picture, and wow, steganography is awesome.
Yo, steganography isn't going anywhere. Anybody who thinks that it's lying to themselves.
That's true. I mean, that's how.
I've never used it. Hold up, Pat. Send me some info. I need to know the gift show. I need to find it. Eric says, I hate Teams and I think we are forcefully getting moved to it. Also, what's up?
What's up?
But, all right, look, hey, if y'all want to ask questions, please put them in the chat. Ask your questions to Jake. We're talking binary exploitation, reverse engineering, which I do need to talk a little bit more about that. Yep. IoT devices and just careers in general. So please feel free to send your questions along. And Super Chats gets you a star, and you get first dibs on the question and answer round. But going into a little bit about reverse engineering, how much do you know about assembly? Like, do you go deep into it to reverse engineer? And like, are you able, if I were to ask you to write code in assembly, could you do it?
Depends on the initial implementation, but yes, I am relatively pretty comfortable with x86, x64 based assembly. I'm working on ARM assembly right now, but honestly, I know this might come off as a surprise, and it sure does to people that I work with. I love low-level languages. You know, C and assembly, love them. But the more abstracted that you get with, you know, Java, Python, I actually, you know, object-oriented, that's just like not my bread and butter. I'm still working at that, but I love low level. I'm way more.
So you're not like a let's create functions type of guy. You're more of a or call another, you know, let's call this file to, you know, reference this file to reference.
No,
you're more, you know what? I need
inheritance.
To push this,
yeah,
and pull that.
Yep, inheritance. Yeah, push and pull those levers. Listen, inheritance and polymorphism. No, I haven't. So the way that I learn best is project based, and you know, just like I gotta do something. I gotta find a project. So I'm more like project based learning. And as a result, I just haven't like really practically utilized object-oriented programming languages yet. And I think that's like my biggest downfall. So I got to find some more additional time to get better at that, especially with Android security research, which I'm actively in right now. So progressing my Java skills a little bit more. But I'll tell you what.
Java can burn you.
Oh, I hate it. I'll tell you what though. Whenever we're opening up these native libraries and that are C and C++ based, you know, I can swim. I can definitely swim, and I do really good with them. But as soon as we touch that Java layer,
whoa, C++. That's why still a lot of your exploits are written in C and C++, because it is one of the few languages that can still call assembly code.
Yep,
you can't write assembly in Python.
Yeah.
Like you can't sit there and be like, oh yeah, let's go down to the, you know, 3 layers deep and you know, affect memory or you know, CPU functionality. Whereas in C and C++, you can't.
You have
So that's why those
you have
two.
direct memory access with
Yep,
those
that's why
low-level
those two
languages.
languages are still highly used.
Yep.
In exploitation,
Especially on IoT embedded devices, mobile platforms. I mean, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pat does want to know how he gets as sexy as us two. I mean, I ain't got no tips, man. You just gotta bring it. That's all it is.
You gotta bring it, man. You gotta bring it. And that Florida sun, Pat. I know you're in Florida. Come on,
Right,
get out in the sun,
dude. I'm in PA. Like, I don't know what to tell you, homie.
What? I forgot to ask you, what part of PA are you from?
I'm near Pittsburgh.
No way.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a town in Steubenville, Ohio, 30 minutes away from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yep. It's crazy.
My
Small
mother-in-law's
world.
in Akron now.
No way. Yeah, that's about like an hour 15 from Steubenville. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've been to West Virginia, Ohio. PA. Then again, the Army took me all over, but
The
before
tri-state.
the Army
Yep.
took me all over, I had gone all through the tri-state area. So
I love it. Yeah, the Ohio Valley. Yep.
I know the
Yeah.
Three Rivers well.
Oh, big time. Are you talking about the casino or the actual rivers?
The actual rivers, fuck casino. I don't gamble.
Yeah, no way.
Get
Neither
them
do I.
arms up. Hey Pat, you can't compete with these arms. Let's just say that. All right.
Come on.
Get as big
There's
as you want.
guns,
You ain't
man.
beating me.
There's guns. I'm coming for
Oh.
you with that arm wrestling.
Eric is doing Naham CTF. I'm dog shit at it. Dude, it takes time. I literally got schooled by a 17-year-old. I ain't gonna lie. And I was doing hack the boxes CTF. Like they're reverse engineering challenges, and they literally mollywopped me. I was walking through with a dude, and I was like, "How old are you?" And he was like, "I think he was 17." I was
That's
like,
crazy.
37 years old. How do you do this?
How? How do you do it?
What the hell?
That is awesome.
I love it though. I do. So all right. So let's go back. Let's step back a little bit. We were talking about the schools. You were talking about like the Ohio school system and things like that. I'm a different type of parent being in cybersecurity. If you give my kids these dumbass Chromebooks, I'm gonna tell them do whatever you want. If you find a way around their security, that's their fault, not yours.
100%. I hate and love Chromebooks. I don't know why they're rapidly
I
rolled
despise
out.
them.
I
They're
hate them.
garbage.
I hate them. I absolutely hate them. I just don't understand why they're even rolled out. Like why they're even a thing. Whenever I started,
People think they're secure
yeah,
because you can lock them. No, you can't lock them down. It's Linux underneath. If I can
No.
get to a Linux shell, I can own your entire computer.
it's over. You have maximum control at that point.
That's
maximum.
just like if you have, if you're running, not Kubernetes. What's the other?
Docker.
Yeah, Docker. Dude, if I can exit Docker, I own every freaking container on your computer.
I love
What are you gonna
Docker
do?
escapes. Docker escapes are so awesome.
Dude, I've used them on exams, on CTFs, in real life, on pen tests. Like Docker escape. I'm sorry, Docker is not secure.
No,
not
at all.
if you're doing
It's
basic
great.
Docker installs, it's trash.
Yeah, it's great for productivity, but for security, like on a live system, no way. Production system, no way. No way. Development for sure, but don't roll it out in your production
I mean,
environment.
so here's the thing, though, right? It also comes down to what the intent is. If you're trying to use Docker as a form of infrastructure as code, I get it. But it needs to, you might as well run it on your local system. Otherwise, run Kubernetes through clusters that come down, go up, and scale as needed.
Yep.
Or use true Terraform and Ansible infrastructure as code and stand up and tear down your
CI/CDs. Yep.
There's Docker on a local system makes sense if you are, because all right, let's say Python, for instance. You could have a ton of libraries and you can virtualize them and do all this stuff and You create your own virtual end. But if you want to distribute something, And you don't want to be like, well, it worked on my machine, why not yours? Docker.
Yeah,
Like, that makes
yeah,
sense.
compatibility, scalability, even conflicting dependency issues, especially with Python. That could be like pip3 warfare
Yeah.
if you're not using Docker.
So John wants to know, and I missed this question a while ago, what's on your whiteboard?
So there's a whole bunch of binary exploitation. I got a topology up there for a man in the middle, and then a bunch of just a little heap and stack, like pros and cons diagram. So not
So
nothing.
this is what I want.
I'm concerned about my OPSEC. Don't worry, there's nothing crazy up there.
So this is what I want from you, Jake. I want you to go on a long ass rant. This is going to be your rant, 5 minutes, or as long as you want to go. I want this to be about you. So put out there anything you want about how to get into security research, how to get into, because security research, you're only been in the field what, 0 to 3 years, right? So
3 years, not even like
you've been able to get to a security research position, which, let's be honest, is pretty hard to do that quickly, especially to get paid for it. So I want you to put out there everything to anybody, whether they're breaking in the field or whatever, any advice to actually get into what you do today and kind of how you got there, projects and all.
Absolutely. This is a great question. Especially all of the conventions the security conventions that I was at recently. This allowed me to go and be represented by my company, which was a super awesome opportunity. Well, actually, handful of opportunities that I absolutely adored. This allowed me to reach out to a whole bunch of different people, from seasoned security veterans all the way to college kids who are just trying to get in, and they all asked the same exact question. They were like, how can we get in? Well, I ended up saying the same thing about a million times, and I loved it every single time. So honestly, I'm never gonna preach anything that has never worked for me. I'm always gonna keep it real and give everybody the best advice I can. And this is what's worked for me. I'm gonna keep utilizing it and keep doing it. It's just been 100%. So here's the secret. So, especially whenever you're trying to break into the field, if you're not somewhere where you love, which is most people in the moment, just know that those things are very temporary. Those feelings are very temporary, and nothing's ever permanent. You can make a pivot right now, and 6 months from now, you could be in a completely different position. So, especially directed towards college kids, or if you're trying to get into security, 100%, you need to find something that I tell everybody this drives you crazy. I like absolutely. I want you guys to go out, find something that sparks your interest, sparks your flame, and you're like, wow, like I want to learn everything there is about this. I want to take this to the next level. Uh, do OSINT, do public research, look up what exactly is going on out there, what other people are doing in that specific focus, and put your own spin on it. So one cool thing that I actually saw Derek talking about in a recent video of his was he was talking about imposter syndrome, and you shouldn't worry about somebody else and how their successes line up with yours. You should worry about your own self. So my advice to people is 100% find something that drives you crazy, put your own unique spin on it, and just take it to the moon. And so one thing, just to give a quick example about it, that I brought into numerous interviews, and it actually just paid massive dividends to me, is I created my security blog, which was just absolutely awesome. If Devin can pop that up for us, that would be awesome. But yeah, you guys can go and check that out. I used that to get my last 2 security researcher positions, and it like I was able to talk about numerous different things, numerous different curiosities, even things that I didn't have any professional experience in whatsoever. And just because I was able to show curiosity and my love and passion and drive for these types of technologies, these vulnerability classes, I was able to take it to the moon in these interviews and just talk about it and actually portray that knowledge base in a digestible manner through these blog posts.
Where is
So
the security blog? You got a link for it? What's it called?
okay, I will actually pull it up right here. I'll pop it in the
Devin
chat.
is a little slow on
It's
finding it.
it's hacking.swissecurity.com. So Swizz is my nickname for everybody who doesn't know. Let me see here.
Oh, he beat me to it. He beat me to it.
There we go. There it is. Yeah, so go ahead and check that out. It's great stuff. It's full of forward engineering, reverse engineering, binary exploitation. You have pen testing, red teaming in there, couple Linux, Windows, binary exploitation, as well as some malware dev, which I want to start getting back into more. I also want to get back into web hacking. That's always been a weaker area of mine, but absolutely loved it.
I despise Space Taco. See you later.
See you, my man.
Web application and web hacking has always been like where I fall short.
Yep.
I know the networking side. I know operating systems.
Yep.
The websites, especially when you start getting like SQLI and I don't know. There's just no method to web hacking. Where like
it's a wild west. I mean, it's like an entire universe on its own, and I feel like every single web assessment or every single CTF that's web based that I've ever done, it's entirely different. You cannot teach that methodology at all. Like, you need to just go in and do it yourself and develop and harden those skills, because you can't, in my opinion, you really can't teach web exploitation. You can't.
You can teach SQL injection, right?
Yes. There's certain aspects of it that you can definitely teach.
Yeah, but the methodology, I don't think there's a methodology to it that you can really. It's not like network hacking where it's like, all right, do a port scan. All right, what applications are running or what ports are open. All right, on those ports you have this application of this version. How do you exploit that? Is it possible to exploit that?
Look for end days.
Do it remotely. Yep. Or do you need to send a phishing email that's then going to get exploited? Do you need to send a Word document? Whatever the case may be. So, like, I look at these things and I'm just like I look at that and I'm like, that has a method to it. There's a method to that madness. With web, it's like, hey, scan all 50 million pages on this site.
Yep.
And hope maybe you find a login page and then just go to town on that until you figure out whether it has SQL injection. Like, see, to me, that's the crazy thing. It's like, is there any type of form?
Yeah, like the amount of CMSs that are out there. Each CMS on its own requires its own methodology, which is just unbelievable. I mean, there's dozens of vulnerabilities associated with web, so it's really cool. I have plans on doing a total walkthrough on my blog on OWASP Juice Shop. So that's gonna be really cool.
For a while. That's fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. Yeah, so I want to do a complete walkthrough on that. It's gonna be a good time. And
the hardest thing I ever did was a blind SQLI. Or no, I think it was error based. I forget which one it was. It was either blind or error based. Hardest fucking challenge in my life was like
it's crazy.
There's like 50 different types of SQLI. Just there's so many. It's just ridiculous.
The list of payloads. Like, if you just want a quick example of how many possibilities of payloads and vulnerabilities that there could be, go look at payloads, all the things on GitHub, and just look at the various vulnerability classes, and you're like all of these are possible, like, and plug and play.
Look at your PHP freaking backdoors.
Yep. It's crazy.
Let me upload a PHP file to your system.
Please. File bypass techniques. I mean, that's another one. I mean, from magic bits to file constraints, like sizes. I mean, it's unreal. Like, dude,
if I can do a remote file upload to your website and access that file, it's game over.
it's game over. That's why every single box submission form, I test for cross-site request forgery every single time. I'll try to see if I can get a call back to my machine every single time. Every single time. I don't care how secure it is, how modern it looks. I'm doing it every single time. Right. That's one of the first things I do.
So we're over an hour, but I got one final question for you.
What's up?
Just because I find it intriguing, because I've heard it before, and this was over the years. I've heard this time and time again. Have you ever done any research on porn websites? Because I hear they're the most secure. Out of every company, out of every business out there, they are the most secure from what I hear. Never tested myself, never cared to, whatever. Not my bag.
Honestly, no. No.
Because I've heard they are the most secure websites out there are especially your paid for ones.
Yeah.
Porn websites.
You threw me with a loop for this one.
That one's kind of crossed my mind. I was actually kind of curious about that because when I think websites, I'm like, man, so many companies get owned all the time. But I have never heard of a porn company getting owned.
Never. Yeah, I mean, like that's actually I've never thought about that. I've never thought about that.
But I've heard they have the most secure systems.
That's unreal. Yeah, like there's never been a time that I can think of. That's unbelievable. That's funny. Yeah, hey,
$billion business, probably the biggest business in the US is that industry. Makes me wonder.
Absolutely. Hey, and IT guys and actually make their whole operation possible. So maybe they funnel a little bit of money into security on that side. And
I think they do because it is you have more to worry about if that stuff gets out there.
Way more. Yeah, you got some big problems coming your way.
Yeah. So I think they care more about security than most banks. Just saying.
100%. I mean, seriously, how many banks have you heard getting cracked? And you think about porn websites.
Our banks are about to go bankrupt because of how many times they've been owned in the past 10 years. The Paris Hilton leak was not a leak. She leaked that herself. Oh, man. Look, I can go round and round, and actually, the most recent porn leak was iCloud, so it wasn't even a porn website; it was iCloud getting owned. So
yeah,
just saying. Kartik, do me a favor, connect with Jacob on LinkedIn and ask that question because we're wrapping up the episode now. His LinkedIn is in the description of the video episode.
Yep, message me. I gotcha.
But otherwise, look, it's been amazing having you on, Jake. Thanks for coming here. Feel free to hang around. We'll talk a little bit more. But otherwise, look, I am the Cyber Warrior. This is Cyber Warrior Studios. This has been another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour. And I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. And if not, well, tune in next week. Maybe you'll get something from next week's episode. Otherwise, I love you all. Take care. And I'll see you next time.